Consider the lilies, how they grow. They toil not, they spin not. And yet I say unto you that Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. If then God so clothed the grass, which is today in the field and tomorrow is cast into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O ye of little faith? And seek not ye what ye shall eat or what ye shall drink, neither be ye of doubtful mind.
This is our kingdom, a kingdom of righteousness. Praise the Lord. Praise ye the Lord.
For all these things do the nations of the world seek after, and your Father knoweth that ye have need of these things. But rather seek ye the kingdom of God, and all these things shall be added unto you. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell that ye have, and give alms. Provide yourselves bags which wax not old, a treasure in the heavens that faileth not, where no thief approacheth, neither moth corrupteth. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. To the kingdom of Israel!
Yahweh, watch him, Yahweh, Yahweh, watch him, Yahweh, Yahweh, watch him, Yahweh, Yahweh, watch him, Yahweh.
The election, an aristocracy, meaning rule of the best, a group or class considered superior to others, a government by the best men in the state, a governing body composed of the best men in the state, and that's the elect. We're about to have it all right? Psalms 37 and verse 11, and it reads, "But the meek shall inherit the earth, and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace." That word for peace in the Hebrew is shalom, which goes into safety, soundness in body, meaning we're going to truly have rest, welfare, health, prosperity, peace, quiet, tranquility, contentment. So we're going to fully enjoy the planet Earth. We're going to rule and exist within the Lord's creation as we're created to do. I'm ready to rule the world, man. How about you?
Let the golden light of this sunset guide our hearts in peace.
How about you, Shah? Rakata Yahweh Shah. Rakata Yahweh. Rakata Yahweh. Rakata Yahweh Shah.
Fear not, evil flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell that ye have, and give alms. Provide yourselves bags which wax not old, a treasure in the heavens that faileth not, where no thief approacheth, neither moth corrupteth. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
Spirit dance to a peace.
See, this is what we're hoping for. This is part of our hope. Not only that we are members of the elect with fruits meet for repentance, like John the Baptist said, but from our low estate, because we've been brought low, even though we have this knowledge, we have this truth. Remember what it said in Revelation. I know thy works in tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. Why are we rich? Because we're rich in faith. We have this knowledge. So our hope is at our last end, we're going to be increased. Okay? And if you ask me, the greatest riches right now is to be delivered by, is to get that. The Apostle Paul spoke about 1 Corinthians 15th chapter, to get that, get that new body where we'll never be sick, we'll be immortals, like it said in 1 Corinthians 15, to be delivered from the coming destruction, and to be a part of Yahweh's cabinet in the next kingdom. Okay, those are the real riches right now. That's what we want to get. Because if you get that, you got everything. I mean, you got everything. Okay, so our sights are set a lot higher than this present world. All right, as it is written, the fashion of this world shall pass away. We are individuals of vision, and the scripture said, where an individual lacks vision, he perishes. Okay, so we can see the future. All right, and we hope that we're going to be part of it, beginning with the elect.
All right. Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem, Wakakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers, and peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem, Wakakadash, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Al Shai. All right, and what I want to get into this morning, is dealing with unstable leaders, all right, and signs of the time, okay, because the fact that, we see, especially over here in the West, which the elites, all right, they appoint, all right, these certain leaders, all right, these puppet leaders, to put in the face of the public, okay, as the elites have been implement this new world order within these different governments, okay, to create what this one world government. All right. So especially in the West, which the leadership of the West is a complete clown show. Okay, which we know the elites have their hands in all the governments of the world. Okay, some more than others. Okay. But we know one thing, that over here in the West, all right, the leaders that they present over here in the West are a complete clown show, man. Okay, and I got a few videos I want to get into, and just to show you. All right, matter of fact, let's get this prophecy first. But just to show, all right, the same thing that they do in the EU, they do over here in America, man. All right, this beast system has become a joke in the earth, and that's why you see this assembly of nations outside of this beast system begin to rise up. Okay. And this assembly of the nations is going to, all right, wage war, okay, against the whore. Okay, these small hats, okay, in EU, they're going to have to turn on the whore, all right, and the scripture say, burn her with fire. Okay, so everything that we're seeing all relates to prophecies. Okay, so when we go here, this is GNT, 2nd Esdras, 2nd and 9. All right, 2nd Esdras. 9 and 1. In the GNT, it says, he answered, consider all the things very carefully. When you see that some of the things I have told you about have appeared, you will know that the time has come when the Most High will bring judgment on the world he has created. So we're right here at the doorsteps of great judgment going forward. Okay, and it's going to be on the scale of the flood. Okay, it's going to be on the scale of Sodom and Gomorrah. All right, put together. That's why you see in the scriptures, it mentions the judgment of Noah during the time of Noah, the flood, and on Sodom and Gomorrah together. Okay, because just as the Lord flooded the earth, during the time of Noah. Well, it's going to be a global judgment. This judgment is going to touch every part of the world. Okay. Now we know America is going to get the worst of it. It's going to be completely turned into a lake of fire. Okay. And when that lake of fire, eventually, goes out, however long the Lord has it burn, okay, America is going to be a desert. Okay. America is going to be a desert full with desert creatures, man. You see? So what we're seeing is all the events leading up to the Lord getting ready to judge the world, okay, and turn America into a desert, because America is going to get the brunt of the Lord's wrath, okay, because America has been, all right, the throne of the elites in the earth, okay, in which they've been able to push this great rebellion in the earth, man, okay, and it's been this American system that has modified these nations to this technocracy, man, okay, through this economic system and through the military, the hammer, okay. So as we see these nations right here at the doorstep, okay, rolling out this new world order, the Lord has some infighting, all right. He has certain conflicts and disagreements, you see, but they're still going to move forward, all right, to a certain point with this new world order, to where we know for sure they're going to mandate this MOTB. Okay. But what we're seeing in the West, man, is just a complete clown show when it comes to so-called leaders. Okay. That's why when you keep reading, it said verse 3 said there will be earthquakes, national rebellions, international intrigues, unstable leaders, and confused rulers. Okay, unstable leaders and confused rulers, man. Okay, because see, we're getting to the point now where because these leaders have to take on the accountability. See, the elites, all right, the goddamn coward elites. See, they don't want to have to be at the forefront and take any accountability for what they're trying to do. Okay, they're in the background, okay, rolling out this new world order, but then they put these puppets to take all the blame, okay, for these economies that they're crashing, okay, for the inflation, you see, for constant war, all right, for certain crises. And see, these leaders have to sit in the fire while the elites are in the background, the ones that are causing all the chaos. Okay, so these leaders have to stand in the fire. You see, some of these leaders, they're just stepping down and getting out their fire. Man. You see, they're like, look, man, this is you see too much. Then they bring in another puppet, and what it shows you too is it don't matter that who's in these positions, prime minister, president, none of that matters. All right, because the agenda of the elites is what goes forward. Okay, these offices are just revolving doors. All right, these political positions, they're just revolving doors, but the agenda of the elites it stays the same. Okay, and that's to roll out this global system of control. Okay, now it says it said there will be earthquakes, national rebellions, international intrigues, unstable leaders, and confused rulers. When you see these things happening, you will know that they are what the Most High has spoken about since the beginning, okay, of creation, man. Okay, so the Lord has prophesied, he used his prophets through the ministry of the prophets, prophesied at these times. Even going with say Enoch, he spoke of the return of Yahushua. See, the atmosphere is being set of Yahushua's great return. Yahushua and that Father's ship, okay, along with the heavenly host, of multitude, okay, of angels that's going to be with him. Okay, even Enoch spoke about that. So he spoke about that. All right, he spoke about the time leading into the coming of Yahushua. You see, the scripture called Noah a preacher of righteousness, which ultimately he was a prophet. Okay, so these things have been spoken about, all right, since the beginning. Okay, it said the beginning and the end of everything that happens in the world are clear. The same is true in the world above. Wonders and miracles show the beginning of events, and mighty signs show when they end, and mighty signs, okay, show when they end. You see, so we're in the time of signs that are being shown that we're in the end. Okay, and the fact that you got these propped up puppet governments all over the world especially here in the West, is a sign that we're in the end. Okay, because the elites need complete imbeciles in office, all right, that they can control, all right, so they can roll out this new world order. You see, and they're doing away with this whole style of government. So they're sabotaging these governments, intentionally making them seem, incompetent, okay, not effective. You see, which sets the stage to present for them to present this new style of government of technocracy, which they're going to present it, with this technological utopia. Okay, so let's go from there. Let's get this in uh let's get this in the book of Ecclesiastes. We always get into it. Okay. This is the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 10, verse 16. And it says, "Woe to thee, O land, when thy king is a child, and thy princes eat in the morning." Okay. So we're in a situation which says, woe, which is destruction. All right. So you have these irresponsible childish leaders in power. And Esau, he's in control, and so he has all this technology, all his military might. Okay, but he's irresponsible. Okay, you look at the decision making, even from the elites, man, it's very irresponsible. Okay, even with this whole data center, that's extremely irresponsible to keep setting up these data centers, knowing what it's doing to the earth. And see, like Esau do a lot of things which he doesn't know, all right, the full effect. Okay, is because he's so locked into trying to be the most high, okay, that he's impulsive and he does things regardless of the consequences and not even knowing the full consequences, man. Okay, because it's only so far Esau can see ahead. Okay, he has blind spots, all right, and he's moving as a child. Okay, very irresponsible. Okay, very impulsive. You see, very inexperienced. Because he's into a realm that he doesn't have any experience. He can't be the Most High. He doesn't have no experience in being the Most High. How can he be something you don't have no experience in, man? Okay, and he's trying to pull this off with this technocracy, man. Okay, it says, "Woe to thee, O land, when thy king is a child, and thy princes eat in the morning." Yeah, so when you go, just a quick Google look up, look into it. All right, it calls this man a child, and thy kings eat in the morning. I mean, our princes eat in the morning, and our king is a child. So, real quick, just typed in Google. I said, what would Ecclesiastes 10 and 16 look like today, with the current leaders? It says in Ecclesiastes 10 and 16, the writer laments a nation governed by a child king and princes who party in the morning rather than focusing on duty. Today, this will look like leaders prioritizing self-interest. And see, every decision that's being made by these governments is in the interest of the elites. There's nothing being done to benefit the masses, man. Okay? That's why the masses always end up in a worse situation. Okay? When these new policies and these new events and these different decisions are being made, well, it puts the masses in a worse situation every time. Okay, but it enriches what? The self-interest of the few, of these oligarchs, man. Okay? And especially in America, where it's the worst. See, you Americans, you dumbass Americans, man. Okay? And you're getting ready to celebrate, all right, 250-year birthday of America. And America has been dragging you through the mud these last few decades, man. Okay? These last few decades, your government has been completely dragging you through the mud, man. Okay? And you people are still getting ready to celebrate like your government has some type of interest in you, man. No, man. The government of America, all right, fully serves the interests of the elites, man. Okay, it says endless campaigning or partisan bickering while ignoring, all right, pressing structural issues like economic stability and infrastructural decay. Okay, so the concern of, all right, your leaders, okay, is their own self-interest, because this new world order only benefits, all right, the few oligarchs, all right, these few oligarch families, man. Okay, you have certain oligarch families of other nations that, you know, are in bed with, you know, the elites. Okay, and the elites are like the overlords of this new system that's being rolled out. Okay, and it only benefits them. So these other nations like China, Russia, okay, they posture themselves for this new world order as well. Okay, even Iran. Now you have, you know, discrepancies. Okay, when it comes to the resources. Okay, when it comes to, you know, status, you know, going into this new world order, and that's what we're going to see. You know, the fight and escalate, you know, over those particular points, discrepancy, and it's the Lord that caused, and it's the Lord that instigated these discrepancies they're having. Okay, in this final stretch, man, which is going to continue to escalate. All right, and overthrow everything this devil is trying to do, and then it's going to usher in Yahweh Shai. Okay, it says misplaced priorities. It said the ancient images of princes feasting in the morning translate to global leaders prioritizing luxury, endless fundraising, or photo ops, while their constituents face housing crisis and inflation. Yeah, so here it is. These devils are talking about multi-billion-dollar data centers. Okay, when you have housing crisis, housing is unaffordable. Okay, but they have unlimited money when it comes to data centers. Okay, and it's to the point where they're doing eminent domain, taking people houses and land. Okay, for the sake of data centers, they're taking people houses and land to destroy the earth, because every data center is a destruction to the earth. Okay, but Esau, he just sees it as giving life to his new world order. Okay, so this man would destroy the earth to give life to a new world order. Now, what type of logic is that? Okay, what type of logic is that? Well, your new world infrastructure destroys the earth that you want to rule over. Okay, a child, man, he's not thinking. Child think one step at a time, because a child don't have no experience to think multiple steps. Okay, so we're seeing this man really think like a child, one step at a time. You see, with this old new world order, see, Esau's peeking out, man. Esau is peeking out because the Lord is finna get ready to remove this man from power. We're seeing this man peek out. Okay, Esau hitting that ceiling. Okay, and the Lord getting ready to undo his ass, man. You see? So it said the child ruler said this represents governing figures characterized by emotionally immaturity. And when you look at Trump, man, it's all you think of: an emotional immaturity, short-term populism, or inexperience, resulting in reactive policy rather than long-term strategic vision. Okay, and the only long-term strategic vision these devils got in this new world order, which is going to be very short-lived. Okay, so that's why they're not concerned about the policies that forward the masses. Okay, they tell you, you know, it sounds good. They tell you what you want to hear, but then they forward the agenda of the elites, man. Okay, and this has happened globally, man. Okay, so yeah, let's go here. Let's play this first video with this guy, Keir Starmer. You know, because the latest news with this guy here, he gonna step down. Okay, he was the British Prime Minister. Okay, which he was a complete clown. You know, goddamn dweeb. You see, but let's play a little bit of this, man, and you're gonna see. All right,
I'm very clear
that they play the same game with different governments, because it's the same. All right, elites that control. You know, this beast system, man. You know, and system outside of this beast system, elites have their hands in, man. So let's play this.
I'm very clear. Israel must have that, does have that right to defend herself, and Hamas bears responsibility.
A siege is appropriate, cutting off power, cutting off water. Sakir?
Well, I think that Israel does have that right. It is an ongoing situation.
Welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. I am, of course, not Jimmy Dore. I'm your guest host, Misty Winston. Thanks for tuning in tonight. There's big news happening today. I'm sure many of you have already seen it happen earlier today. Keir Starmer has actually resigned, which is kind of crazy considering the insane amount of leaders that they have gone through over the course of the past, decade or so. So let's jump into this. So it says Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer says he will resign with a new leader to be in place by the time Parliament returns in September, paving the way for Britain to have its 7th leader in 10 years. That is wild behavior. So we are going to take a listen. It is sped up because it is kind of a longer speech.
It's 7 leader in 10 years. It's 7 leader in 10 years, man. That's crazy. Okay, just a revolving door, and the elites are putting pressure on these leaders to come on with the come on. All right, because your government. Okay, the elites have your government at war with the masses, man. Okay, so the governments of these different nations, the elites put them at war with their own people, because the elites look at these leaders like throwaways, man. They can get plenty of Keir Starmers, plenty of Donald Trumps, plenty of Emmanuel Macron, and so forth and so on, of these different leaders, man. They can get plenty of these leaders. So they just throw these niggas in office, okay, to take the heat, okay, for the decision of the elites, man. So these ones in these British prime ministers say they've been getting out of there, man. Okay, and then you have this guy here, because remember, this was the main guy who was saying with this Iran situation, like, nigga, this is not our war, okay. And then now he just done got all the way out the way. So with this new guy, it's going to be interesting, whoever they put in, okay, because it's just going to be a more souped up nigga for the elites, okay? They remove one puppet, and then they bring in another puppet that's more souped up than the last one, man. That's going to be more radical than the last one, man. Just like, and it's interesting, too, just with J.D. Vance, because lately he been getting a lot of TV time. Mostly the vice president just, you don't hear from them guys the whole term. You hear about them, when it's time to campaign, but after that, you don't even hear from the vice president. But this guy been involved, in a lot of media, making a lot of statements. So I'm wondering what they're positioning him for. Interesting. It could be nothing. It could be somebody. It's interesting. They using this guy J.D. Vance a lot, man. This vice president. So it's a lot. Because he double, like I say, his back against the wall, okay, and he needs maximum distraction, okay, maximum, psyops, okay, to go forward with this new world order. Well, let's go back into this clown, man, Keir Starmer, goddamn coward.
But he did give a speech about his resignation today, so we're going to take a listen to that real quick.
Party is asking now. The question my party is asking now is whether I am best placed to lead us into the next general election. I have heard the answer of my parliamentary party to that question, and I accept that answer with good grace. Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first. That is why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party.
So there you have it. Keir Starmer has resigned. It's kind of not surprising. He has been under a significant amount of pressure. So we're going to read this from the Associated Press. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said Monday he will resign, forced out by his own party after missteps and mistakes soured voters' goodwill following a landslide election victory 2 years ago on a promise of steady leadership and economic growth, which he did not do any of that. Starmer says he will remain caretaker prime minister until his Labour Party chooses a new leader, with expectations growing that it will be former Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham. It was Burnham's victory in a special parliamentary election last week that triggered Starmer's decision to resign, as Labour lawmakers flocked to the charismatic former mayor in the hope he can revive the party's fortunes. After nearly a decade as mayor of the northwestern city, Burnham returned Monday to Parliament, where he took the oath of office in the House of Commons. only members of parliament are eligible for the party leadership. Starmer is the 6th prime minister in a decade to stand outside number 10 Downing Street and announce a departure. His statement came the day before Britain marks the 10th anniversary of its vote to leave the European Union, a decision that still roils the country's economy and politics. After weeks of insisting he would fight to keep his job, Starmer conceded to growing pressure to hand over to a new leader who can try to revive the government's flagging fortunes. He led Labour to a landslide victory in July of 2024, but since then his popularity and that of the party have plummeted. Starmer has struggled to deliver promised economic growth, repair tattered public services, and ease the cost of living. He has been hamstrung by repeated missteps, including his decision to appoint Peter Mandelson, never a good idea, a scandal-tarnished friend of Jeffrey Epstein, of all people, as UK ambassador to the United States. Labour is losing liberal voters to the growing Green Party and facing a rising...
And the nigga Epstein, he come up everywhere, man. All right, and a lot of these leaders that they put in office, they have to go through that, the Epstein, ritual and humiliation. And then they're put in office, and they make sure they have all this blackmail on you, so so you don't get cute in office, man. Okay, but this is why the East, they call the West the Epstein class. Okay. You see, certain, especially, with, these Iranian analysts, they call this the Epstein class. Okay, all these leaders of the EU, okay, and America, okay, they call them the Epstein class, man. Okay, and they all had some type of dealings with this guy, okay, and which that's just a small portion of the wickedness that they do, the rituals that they do, which, I got another video, all right, where he goes into it a little more, all right, after this one. Dealing with this guy Trump. Okay, so let's play a little more of this.
Reform UK, the Nigel Farage-led anti-immigration party that consistently leads in nationwide opinion polls. Can't talk today. U.S. President Donald Trump weighed in even before an announcement linking Starmer's exit to two of the Republican leaders' recurring grievances, immigration and renewable energy. And in true Donald Trump fashion, his tweets are so, I don't know, it's like a toddler. It's crazy. Keir Starmer will resign as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He failed badly on two very important subjects, immigration and energy, open North Sea oil. I wish him well, President DJT. He just has such an interesting style of tweeting. Starmer's initially warm relationship with Trump has soured in recent months over issues including the Iran war, which the UK didn't join. Good for them. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen praised Starmer's legacy. Quote, "It can take many leaders years to grow into the statesman you became in just 2 years," she said on X. "European and Ukrainian security is stronger because of you. Thank you, dear Keir." And then, of course, here is from Adam Media, Keir Starmer set to resign. Finally, I think a lot of people have that sort of reaction to this. It's shocking that it took this long, to be honest with you. So let's recap his 2 years of selling out, according to Adam. He won the largest labor majority in a generation, a historic mandate, the country in his hands. He then appointed Peter Mandelson, Epstein's man in Britain, as his first major hire. Cracked down on Palestinian protests and civil liberties, backed every war, backed to genocide, raised taxes, historic unemployment, did absolutely nothing about the cost of living except make it worse. Caved like a corrupt coward on abolishing leasehood, rolled out digital ID, forced ID for all new accounts, banned social media for young people, and increased anti-Semitism education in schools. It continues the result.
And you got the people kicking back against these things, man. This force, and because here it is, they're teaching classes about anti-Semitism. Okay, the people that are committing genocide. All right, the people that run Monsanto, okay, poisoning your food, okay, causing inflation and mass, all right, poverty, continual war, okay. But then when you mention what they're doing, oh, you're anti, you're the problem, okay, you're anti-Semitic, you see, and they was in British, under Starmer, they started to enforce that those curriculums in school. Okay, it was ultimately just brainwashing, man. Okay, and people start losing, man. People are you know, like going back to what we always get was it the brother get the Isaiah 32:5 in the NLT. You know, yeah, let's get that in Isaiah 32:5 in the NLT. Yeah, oh yeah, brother got something too. Yeah, let's get that. But see, all this back in the small hats, see, there was a time when you back the small hats, you were praised. But now, all right, the small hats name are terrible. Their name is terrible out here. Okay, it's associated with genocide. It's associated with PDF files. It's associated, okay, with you know, with Hollywood. Okay, with XEX trafficking. Okay, ritual Satanism. Okay, so their name has been smeared, has been drugged through the mud, which the brother get that Habakkuk 2:16 as well. Okay. Let's see, I see brothers got some stuff up here too. So lucky. Let's get that. Yeah. So the brother got this is a Taza One Hopeful Lick. It's called Putin Leader. Okay, and this describes these elites, man. Okay, and let's say Trump is just a face. Okay, he's like the biggest representation of a child in power. Okay, or a Putin leader. You know, but it begins with the elites up top. It says someone who is sulky, easily upset, or behaves like a spoiled child. Okay, what you had Trump arguing with interviewer, you know, from 60 Minutes. I think this is, you know, the nigga arguing with this then he arguing with a woman. Here it is, you're supposed to be the leader of the strongest nation in the earth, and you're arguing with a woman like a child, man. Okay. Straight clown. You see? Let's see. Let's play let's go here and get a few more of these precepts. All right. Yep, this the brother GMS DC Taza Doc Da Yara 144 said Proverbs 30:21, for 3 things the earth is disquieted, and for 4 which it cannot bear. Okay, and the earth is disquieted means it's not at rest, it's not at peace, it's, you know, tension and conflict. Okay, it says for a servant when he reigneth. All right, and Esau is a servant that's in power. Okay, Esau is not fit for rulership, and ultimately the Lord just been holding this man up for the sake of prophecy, man. Okay, the Lord just been propping this man up in power, having things go and work efficiently. Okay, while this man is in power. Okay, because there's an appointed time when the Lord was going to deal with this man. Okay, and as we get closer to that appointed time, you see the Lord is letting this nigga slip, fall. Okay, look crazy, tacky. He's frustrated. He's going backwards. He's peaked out. He's reaching his ceiling. Okay, because the Lord finna get this nigga out of here, man. It says, for the servant when he reigneth, and the fool when he is filled with meat. Okay, and this is a food that's filled with meat. Okay, what means he's filled with indulging himself. Okay, everything that he does is about enriching himself and increasing his power. Okay, so this is a food when he's filled with meat. Okay, and then often meat goes into drink, you know, because you eat, you drink, you see, and this man is drunk off his own wine. Okay, that's why I say he's a madman and never keep it at home. He's enraged with wine. All right, he believes his own hype. Okay, he believes that he's this unlimited nigga and he can pull off, you know, being the most high, man. Because that's a drunk. When you get drunk, you make these short-sighted, foolish decisions. Okay, that you barely even remember. A lot of times, you know, you get nice and people have to replay, you know, your night to them the next morning. Okay, because your decision making, your logic, and everything goes out the door. You just in the moment, in the exact moment, and this is what Esau is at. He's reached a point to where he's drunken now. Okay, because you know you go from a point to where you got a nice little buzz, you know, then that buzz get a little deeper, then you just get totally intoxicated, man, to where you see. Your decision making is your logic and everything is out the window. This is what Esau was at, man. He's a drunk man. What's that? Isaiah 19, and you know, he's staggering in his own drunkenness, man. Okay, really, you get like Isaiah 19, probably 13 through 16, maybe. All right. So let's keep going. See, brother got some more. Yep. It's the brother Yashima, tribe of Judah. Isaiah 32:5 in the NLT, it says, in that day, ungodly fools will not be heroes. Scoundrels will not be respected. Yeah, they don't got no respect. All right. They don't respect these small hats. You know, it was a time where, you know, it was blasphemy to speak against a small hat. You know, they were these victims, you know, defending themselves. They were just like this sacred thing. But now, all right, these are ungodly fools, man. It says, in that day, ungodly fools will not be heroes. Scoundrels will not be respected, man. So they don't, these small hats don't hold no respect in the earth, man. You know, they're looked at as scoundrels, man, and fools. You see, they're looked at as scoundrels and fools, man. Okay, so being linked to these small hats ain't a great thing. Okay, you got certain the APAC, which is, you know, the way that these small hats fund these different politicians, you know, these sellout politicians. Okay, through APAC. All right, so now it's like if you taking APAC money, okay, well, you instantly lose credibility. Okay, because being linked to these small hats in these days, man, is a terrible thing. It's a bad thing. Okay, when it used to be a great thing that you were this supporter of Israel, used to be looked at as, you know, this holy saint. You see, but now you're looked at as a scoundrel, man. Okay, and a company to wickedness, man. You see, so this is the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 16. This is the brother servants of Yahweh Shah 144. It said, thou art filled with shameful glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing on thy glory, man. Okay, so all we're seeing with Esau now is shameful spewing. You know, and this nigga Epstein keep coming up. Okay, everybody that's linked to Epstein, you know, now people have searched this devil out. Okay, now people are searching this devil out, man. Okay, beginning with the prophets, because it's the prophets that's at the head of this inquisition on Esau. Okay, and now that you know, we're at the end, you know, the Lord's put shameful spewing on his glory, because Esau was looked at as this, you know, this high IQ, intelligent, brilliant, genius, you know, superior nation of people, you know, in the world. The modern world owes all this. The modern world, you know, owes its allegiance to this superior nation that has, you know, developed civilization with all this technology and convenience. You see, but now it's like, no. First of all, a lot of this convenience, all right, Jake, all right, and the Israelite woman created a lot of these technologies that made the world convenient. Okay, because once you search this nigga out and pull up his resume, okay, like, wait a minute, you know, but he's able to patent these things and grow these inventions into great companies, and he uses them, you know, for wickedness as well. You see, but you associate anything that makes life convenient with this nigga, man. Okay, not knowing that there's a lot of Israelite inventors, okay, that created, all right, a lot of this technology that makes day-to-day life convenient. Okay, but he takes it, patents it, all right, mass produces it, and then he's able to advance it, okay, scale it out, and then he turns a lot of it into wickedness, man. You know, so this is play a little more of this, and then we'll get back to the precept. You know, you brothers, the while to you brothers adding to the screen, tapping in, you know.
lost nearly 1,500 council seats in a single local election, a net approval rating of minus 66, the most unpopular prime minister since records began. That is quite the title to have there. And here's what should terrify the labor establishment. Only 5% of labor voters who left went to reform, 32% to the right, they lost, to the left that they abandoned. And I think that we're seeing this, we're seeing this here, right? The Democrats are having the exact same issue. They're not losing, they're losing their own base is essentially what is happening here. They're moving to the right and losing the left, which is very similar to what's happening in the UK. Keir Starmer was never there to.
Yeah, so and you dumb, all right, Edomites in these EU nations and in America, you still play this left-right game. Okay, you still stuck in this false left-right paradigm. Okay, which both of them work for the same interest. You see? So let's segue to this video here, and we're gonna get these precepts. All right, so this guy here, with this video, I plan on doing another video on another segment because this is a pretty long interview. It's pretty good. Let's see. It's about a little bit over an hour, but we're gonna go to a few minutes of it. But yeah, this guy, he goes in. So put both of these in. But yeah, you Edomites 2026, you're still playing this. Here it is, both sides. All right, serve the interests of the elites. Okay, and they make you promises that they don't fulfill. Okay, they put you in a worse predicament. All right, than you were before, and you still run to these polls, and you still, all right, believe in this ideology, okay, of the left and the right. Okay, when it's all BS, man. Okay, but that's good that your, all right, it's good that your leaders are doing you like this, man. You Edomites, okay, because your Edomite elites, okay, have completely shut you out of the blessing. Okay, you're not an heir in the blessing of Esau. Okay, they completely cut you out in the New World Order. They only plan on a few Edomite families benefiting off this system, man. Which is the system is like that now. Okay, well, only a few Edomite families benefit off this system. Okay, but the little perks and privileges that you other Edomites do have, they can strip all that away. Okay, and replace it with control because they want control now. Okay, and they don't trust you niggas, man. Okay, at least don't trust you. You Goyim. Okay, you Goyim Edomites. All right, so this is the brother Yashamai, tribe of Judah. Isaiah 19:13 said, the princes of Zoan are become fools. The princes of North are deceived. They have also seduced Egypt, even they that are, all right, the state of the tribes thereof. So when you go into Zoan, it was similar to like Washington, D.C. of ancient Egypt. Okay, which there was a place of decision making. All right. So when you look at, how America is being ran, it's being ran by fools. Okay, even the elites, they goddamn fools, man. Okay, to try to pull off this technocracy, you have to be a goddamn fool. Okay, to try to undermine the Most High. Okay, with technology to try to replace the Most High. You try to replace a limitless power, okay, with limited technology. Okay, think about what this man is really trying to do. You see, and he's pushing these instructions to, to these governments to do this, to do that, and it's all foolish, man. Okay, this is a part of the story where Esau crashed out. Okay, and be a goddamn fool. Okay, I believe it's Proverbs 5 and the last precept in Proverbs, the 5th chapter in the NLT, I believe. Let's see, Proverbs 5. We always get it. Yeah, Proverbs 5 and 23 in the NLT, Bible Shah. The brother can post it. So yeah, it says it said the Lord have mingled a perverse, all right, spirit in the midst thereof. So it's the Lord that has did this. We have to understand the Lord has mingled a perverse spirit in the midst of Egypt. All right. The elites are not above the Most High, making them look foolish. Okay. The elites don't have everything together. Okay. They control a lot. They influence a lot. Okay. But who has more influence than the elites? The Most High. Okay. And then the Most High wants to make the elites look like a goddamn fool. Well, he gonna do that. And that's what he's doing. Okay, just because they're not on the face and don't have to take the accountability for these foolish decisions, well, they're still fools. Okay, and it said the Lord have mingled a perverse spirit in the midst thereof, and they have caused Egypt to err in every work. And that's why everything you see America trying to pull off, man. Okay, a lot of these things is a backfire. Okay. A lot of these things are backfiring, man. That's why you see a sense of scramble, okay? A sense of tackiness and, a sense of winging it with certain things, okay? Because the things that used to work in their favor and they used to be able to pull off like that, it ain't working like it used to, okay? And they're only being narrowed down to a few, all right, options, man. The Lord is cutting the ring off on Esau, man, okay? To where he just going to have to come on with, all right, be a madman and bring this MOTB. Okay, nigga, wild out and mandate this MOTB. And these are few options that the Lord is leaving this nigga, man. Okay, wild out, bring the MOTB, and then you done. Okay, you're done. You see? So let's it says, neither shall, this is Brother Yashima Tribe of Judah said, neither shall there be any work for Egypt, which the head or the tail, the branch, all right, or rush may do. Okay, so we know that this is going to lead to the crash of the economy. Okay, we know this is going to lead to, the global reset. Okay, because they have to end this system to bring in a new. Okay, and Esau, he's staggering into this new world order like a drunk man. You see, he's staggering into this thing. All right, that's why we're seeing it so tacky. Okay, because he's staggering into it like a drunk man. You see, and he's gonna wild out, with his weaponry. Like I say, he's gonna be a tool of judgment. So this man is gonna wild out, and he's gonna unalive a lot of people in the world. Okay, on his way out. Okay, he's like a drunk man with an AK in the packed room. Okay, a lot of people are gonna get out of there, man. You see, so let's play a little bit of this. All right, he's gonna go a little deeper and go into dealing with Trump. Okay, how all these leaders, okay, are just set up. Okay, how all these leaders are set up and they're connected to these certain families, all right, certain secret societies and different things. So let's let's play this. Let's go here about the limit.
And the new way with Wix Harmony. Showcase what you've got.
And it's sad, but even this whole thing that's been going on with Trump saying, I call the shots, and Trump pretending that he's swearing at Netanyahu, this is just more theater for the masses. It's not like that at all. I mean, they're just playing good cop, bad cop. Trump is unfortunately totally controlled by the Zionists. And that goes back to way back to his childhood. I've discussed this in some of my videos. When you look at his upbringing with his father, Fred Trump, and the way that he was enmeshed in the Jewish community there. Trump's mentor, one of his early mentors being Roy Cohn, who was an Epstein-like figure in the 80s. I mean, he's around the American political scene for a long time. He was around in the 50s with Senator Joe McCarthy. But by the 80s, he was very powerful. He had blackmailed a lot of people. He was using that. He was a very nasty character that would, basically use lawfare and legal tricks to bring down opposition. And he was like a very formative influence on Trump as a young man. And so Trump's been bailed out by the Rothschilds in the 1980s. When you look at his Atlantic City casino business, Wilbur Ross was one of the people who was at a Rothschild bank there who was helping him. Rothschild, of course, is like the key figure of the New World Order, key family, key bloodline family. And Wilbur Ross was later rewarded for bailing out Trump by being made Secretary of Commerce in Trump's first term. So Trump's had all these connections to the Zionists and to the Rothschilds and to rich Jewish power going back to the 1980s. But unfortunately, a lot of people.
So even Trump's father was juiced in with these small hats, man. Okay, you don't get to these certain positions, all right, just by being charismatic. Okay, nah, man. Okay, you gotta be juiced in. You see, and then said Trump's mentor, this guy Roy Cohn. Okay, he was like the Epstein, of the 80s, man. The original Epstein, man. Okay, and he was Trump's mentor, so okay, the dirt that they got on Trump. Okay, and that's what these devils do to man. It's a very tacky rulership. Like I say, when you really get up on Esau and pull this nigga resume, it's a very tacky rulership full of blackmail, treachery, and that's why this new world order is going to go out in war, because that's all Esau knows. See, Esau has taught these nations the sword and treachery. Okay, in order to survive in the Edomite-Iran system, okay, these nations has had to adapt to the sword and treachery, man. Okay, because they watch Esau do it to each other. Esau does it to them. Okay, so that's why this new world order is going to fall, all right, and collapse, man, because it's rooted in blackmail, treachery, all right, war, double crossing, no trust. Okay, there's absolutely no trust. They agree, but then there's no trust. Okay, and that's what's going to lead to these nations, all right, and even these Edomites starting to go with their moves the closer they get to rolling this system out, man. Okay, that's why it's only going to go so far, man. Okay, before it explodes literally in their face, man. Okay, well, let's play some more.
People didn't see it. I mean, I didn't see it as well when he first came onto the scene. He did a very good job of hiding it in 2015 and 2016 when he got elected. But second time round, it was really obvious. And unfortunately, there were still a lot of people in 2020 that voted for him again. And, he's just proceeded to, and in 2024 too, but he's just proceeded to do whatever the Zionists want. Absolutely. I mean, 100%. And he openly boasts about it. He boasts about taking all this money from Miriam Adelson. I think it was 215 million at last count, maybe 230 million. And just, openly boasting of letting Adelson have access to the White House and giving Israel whatever it wanted, including the Golan Heights that they stole from Syria. And it just kind of goes on and on. He's just kind of so unabashedly open about the theft of resources, the theft of land, the theft of oil, all this stuff that he does, the killing, the assassination of people that he does. He's just very so open about it. And why you've got Trump in the White House, I get that there's still a part of him that wants to have peace, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem like that part is strong enough or is going to win out over the part that wants war and is controlled by Israel and that will do what Israel wants.
Yeah, I know we spoke off camera about I reached out to somebody that I know who was a survivor of SRA, and for those in the audience who are not familiar with that, it's satanic ritual abuse. And I've had her on previously, and I sent her a message, hey, I'd love to get your candid thoughts on Trump, because it is interesting to hear some people have the 5D chess stuff, and that he is fighting these forces and that he's a good guy, and then you've got obviously another side that feels otherwise. And I'll just read to you what she sent me here. She said, my take on Trump is not popular among patriots and MAGA, but here is what I know. Trump, like all presidents, works for the satanic global cult. He is of the Black Sun faction. I don't know anything about that, but she's mentioning that. His family line goes back to Von Kemp. I'm not familiar with Von Kemp, but Anyhow, he is allied with the secret space force and Q crowd, obviously QAnon, all cult people. They are the false light side portrayed by the cult as these saviors. Trump is there to destroy, which is a prerequisite to ushering people into the global government. Remember, he ushered in the COVID jab and has now created the War with Iran, which was pre-planned, but he did as he was supposed to, which is furthering the economic assassination of humanity following the COVID wealth transfer. He's also ushering in the AI surveillance state, or trying. I see all of them. The predator class losing their control. Hope that helps. That was the email that she had sent me.
Yeah, man. So it's just all out there, man. Okay. You know, not to get too deep into, you know, these secret society, you know, cults and, you know, and that we know it's all rooted in Satanism. All right. The different Edomite families belong to these different secret societies, and, you know, the different ideologies, you know, but it's all rooted, okay, in Satanism and a one world government. Okay. But these guys that are leaders, they're not just, you know, random, okay, Edomite, okay? They're part of these particular bloodlines, okay? They go back to these secret societies, especially during the time of the Enlightenment age, okay, where the elite started to come to the forefront, okay, and plant seeds of rebellion, okay, to challenge the scriptures, okay, to challenge, you know, the traditions, okay, and to bring on a more radical way of thinking. All right, was rooted in a satanic new world order, man. Okay, so let's go from there. I got one more. I think I got pulled up. Let me see. I want to get into, yeah. No, it's this one. So let me pull this one up. Get a couple of you brothers' precepts as well. All right. And this kind of sums it up. All right, what we in now, brother precepts. All right, this is the brother we call Hopeful 144. It says Proverbs 5:23 in the NLT says he will die for lack of self-control. You know, and the devil can't control himself. You know, he's been, you know, allowed access to this technology. All right. He's been allowed access to enchantments and all this influence in the world. And he doesn't have any self-control but to try to implement, okay, a technocracy, man. Okay, a system of complete control where he undermines and X's out the Most High. Okay, he can't help himself because it seems like it's within his grasp to do it. Okay, and because of his lack of self-control, okay, he's set up for failure. And the Lord programmed this nigga to be like this so he can run to his own destruction, man. Okay, it says he will be lost because of his great foolishness, man. And this begins with the elites. Okay, this is great foolishness they're trying to pull off. Okay, this is the most foolish plan, all right, in human history, man. What these devils are trying to pull off. Okay, and Yahweh Shai, when you go hear this, brother, GMS, all right, Virgin Island, Straight Gate, Matthew 12:25, it says, and Yahweh Shai knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. Okay, and you best believe, like I said, there's discrepancy. You know, there's disagreements between these elites, man. Okay, because they all want to be that guy. You think you have these multiple families? Well, somebody got to be the head family. Okay. And that's the game that these devils play, is a zero-sum game. Okay. and their treachery has no, you know, their treachery. One thing about with Esau, you know, he's not selective, okay, with his treachery. You know, the same way he'll sell out, okay, Elam and Ishmael, where he'll do his own people like that, okay. These oligarchs, they always, because you go into these oligarchs, they're always trying to cancel each other out. When you look at, you know, these families, you know, you look at these what they call the robber barons, you know, these families, American, you know, families. Okay, you go to the Vanderbilts and the DuPont, where they was all canceling each other out. So a few families that were elite families in the early 1900s are not around anymore. All right, early 1800s. I mean, late 1800s, early 1900s. They're not around anymore because they got X'd out. They got absorbed by other oligarch families. Okay, so these devils, they play their game, you know, to where oligarchs plot on these other oligarchs to X them out and take their portion. You see, this is a game these devils play. Then they do the time of the four generals of Alexander. Okay, Daniel the 11th chapter is a whole chapter dedicated to the infighting between two Edomite, all right, kingdoms, man. All right, the Ptolemaic Empire and the Seleucid Empire, man. Okay, that's what these devils do, man. Okay, that's just how they get down within their rulership. Okay, so let's play a little bit of this.
The current administration has $6 to $7 trillion a year of expenses and $4 trillion of revenues. So they have a deficit of $2 to $3 trillion a year, and the debt is skyrocketing. So they don't have agency. And, you know, there's all sorts of questions about how exactly they get their orders and how it works. But, you know, they are functioning in a world they don't have control. That's what he's told. And the question is, who's telling him and how does that message get delivered? So you kind of had this show in front where a group of people look and act like they're running things, but it looks discombobulated because they're constantly saying one thing and doing another and whatever. And then behind it, you have a group of people who, in my experience, are pretty competent and are making it clear, you know, this is how we're going to go. And some people refer to that as deep state. I usually refer to that as the central bankers. The system wants to implement a control grid, and it can't do it without cutting off the leakage. And I suspect that's a big part of what is happening is about. The U.S. government spends, you know, for many decades now, $500 billion to $1 trillion a year. So our military budget is $1 trillion a year. If you're running the global reserve currency, there's one thing you must do if you're the military, and that is you must keep the sea lanes open and you must control the sea lanes.
So going to that leakage, you know, which you go into Iran, you know, Iranian oil, okay, is not being paid for by the petrodollar. See, when America goes into these nations, all right, it's not about winning militarily, all right, as far as what you call a military victory. It's about an economic victory. Okay, so when they go into Afghanistan, Syria, and Iraq, well, what is the economic victory? You see, well, before America went in, the oil of Syria, okay, Iraq, and Afghanistan, well, mainly Afghanistan with the poppy, you know, which goes into the fentanyl, okay, but those resources weren't being sold, okay, on the global market with the petrodollar, okay? But after American military intervention, those resources were being sold, okay, to where, you know, when you sell Iraqi oil, well, that money goes to American banks. When you sell Syrian oil, that money goes to American banks, okay? And then they put a monopoly on the poppy fields of Afghanistan, okay, which enriched the pharmaceutical industries. You see, so American military serves the interests of the elite bankers. All right, and with this agenda, you know, with Iran, you know, which you know, she refers to as a leakage, they wanted to do a regime change, so they can put this American oil, okay, within the American banking system. Okay, because when they switch over the system, whatever system is a part of the American system, okay, you see, because when we talk about the American system, it's the system that the elites use to control the world, okay? Now, American society is being demolished. It's a controlled demolition of the American society to get them to merge, to get the American society up to speed, okay, with the rest of the global citizens. You see, but this American system has been a tool to consolidate power to the elites, okay, mainly the Rothschilds. Okay, that's why you hear about the Rothschilds when you hear about Trump, and because it's the Rothschild central banking cartel, which there's BlackRock. There's nothing but an entity of the Rothschilds. Okay, but yeah, so the whole thing with Iran was to put their oil on, okay, American banks, because they're going to switch over from this American banking system, to a global banking system, and it's going to roll all right, these currencies into a digital currency, a central bank digital currency, a global, okay, instead of just a American control. It's going to be a global control from a different central command in which the elites are going to directly have control over all governments of the world. That's the end game here, man. Okay, so let's jump forward a little bit. Let's see.
And they're relatively, it's what one of the economic spokesperson for the White House, he said, American economy is going to be fine. He said the consumer is going to be hurt, but the economy will be fine because, in fact, the billionaires should be fine. Because what you're talking about doing is creating the conditions for massive consolidation all from the world and consolidate upward, because if you've got the reserve currency and you can do what you did during COVID, we bankrupted or shut down 35% of the small business and God knows how many of the small farms, and the publicly traded Wall Street firms had a field day. They made a fortune, right? So it was successful. And if you think that's successful, wait do you see this? Because for the last year, the administration has cut down massive amounts of, there are all these different programs to provide funding for the food insecure, both domestically and internationally. They've canceled, I think, most, if not all of that. I mean, now you're talking about serious famine conditions globally if this continues. Because if you look at the ingredients coming through for the fertilizer plants, including in Europe, and then look at everything we've done in Europe to shut down the small farmer. I mean, you are creating the conditions of famine. It's criminal. Programmable money and food are two sides of one coin. If everybody can grow food and eat and they have food and energy, they can make community currencies. They don't need my money. I got to control the energy and the food if I'm going to get programmable money, if I'm going to put everybody in the digital concentration camp. We are very close and they are moving very fast. So it's scary. And it's interesting because we were working with different states to legislate programmable money. And our challenge was literally the legislators couldn't fathom that this was a possibility. The market is issuing this stuff at record speed. And if I'm building a 1,000-mile highway and I've got 200 miles now, you put up the guardrails now because people are getting killed now. So you can't wait. And especially because what we're talking about are fundamental constitutional or basic law rights. I mean, if you look at basic human rights in Europe or the United States, we're just talking about putting guardrails that protect those things. And that doesn't stop any financial innovation. It just stops the digital control grid. Remember, every stable coin is going to be programmable. And so it gives you complete surveillance of all the citizens globally if it works. And you can start to fiddle and control them. So what you're going to watch is the US government, so it's going to be the big banks are going to be in the lead on this, and a variety of crypto firms use the crypto rails to tender for as many citizens as they can reach through the smartphones and the internet as possible, and get them off their local currency and out of their local banking system and into the treasury market through using the equivalent of a little crypto treasury bill to trade, right? Because if I'm putting money in my local bank in Estonia the banks making loans and facilitating with credit creation, building the monetary supply. It's through that credit creation that you create. And if you've ever studied Richard Warner's book, he explains how really good local banks, through their credit creation of, properly underwritten companies, creates massive growth without inflation. And instead, what you're going to do is you're going to suck all the money out of that and into financing the war machine. What a great idea. Now, we don't know if this is going to succeed or fail, but if it succeeds from the point of view of the Secretary of Treasury, it's going to decimate the tax base everywhere in the world that it works. You're talking about a mammoth shift into centralization, because instead of my money going into the local bank and circulating in my community, it's going to Washington where they control who gets it. More billionaires. We'll create a lot more billionaires. Now, Wall Street has said we're going to issue tokens. So instead of trading $250 trillion worth of stocks and bonds globally through the current mechanisms, we're going to create a token for all the stocks and bonds and then trade it through the crypto rails. And depending on what happens and how it happens, essentially all of that trading can be without all the restrictions and laws and conditions that protect you from financial fraud over here in the traditional way to trade it. So we're going to trade 24/7 with low transaction fees, and it's going to be the Wild West. Anything goes. And it's very unclear operationally exactly how this is going to work. So you talk to a money manager in the traditional financial system, and they're like, I have no idea how this is going to work. Do you know? Because it's not clear what the legal connection between a token on a share of IBM, tokenize the national parks and sell tokens so that you can own a piece of the national park. It's a way of privatizing all the land and resources in the world. It is a vision of how you get to the financial control grid. The leadership are paid in every country in the world to sell their local population down the river. And that's what's been happening for decades. And if you think it's bad in Europe, you should see what went on in Latin America starting in, the late 90s. It was incredible. And I'll give you a perfect example because I just drove to Switzerland and back through Germany.
So like she said, the leaders, of these nations, are set up to sell their population to the elite bankers. So the leadership of all these nations are paid off. All right, they get their cut. All right, they get their kickbacks, from the elites to sell their population to this technocracy, man, to roll the masses into a technocracy, man. This is what's happening. This is what we're seeing on a mass scale. All right, and as they set up the infrastructure, all right, if they get everything to the point to where they can switch over, they're going to close the trap. And everyone's going to be forced with a decision of taking this MOTB. So this is where we at with it. Dealing with Esau, man. Let me see. Yeah, I think this is the last one. So let's go from there. Let's get this real quick. Oh. So this is the book of let's see. Now let's get this in Job. So you get this in the book of Job, chapter 5 and 12. It says he disappointed the devices of the crafty so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. So these devils are not going to be able to pull this off, and it's going to fail. And it's going to seem, this is what we got to keep the faith, because the Lord is going to allow, the devil, to push forward, all right, and achieve, all right, a few more things within this new world order. The Lord's going to let him achieve, certain, degree of success, all right, with this new world order. It's going to be tacky, but it's going to be, all right, he's going to be accomplishing things. I said, like a drunk man. So he's going to be pulling certain things off. It's going to come with a lot of, violence, a lot of bloodshed. And he's going to be, setting up things, and switching things over and shutting down this and putting up this. So he's gonna get to the point to where he's gonna be able to mandate this technology, and you know, if you don't have this technology, you'll be shut out the system. You see? But then it's gonna come a point, because after he makes a mandate, then it's open for this war to go nuclear and Yahweh Shai return. You know, so how long he's gonna go on after he mandates this thing, you know, we don't know. But we know that opens the door for this war to go nuclear and the return of Yahweh Shai. Okay, which is gonna disappoint everything the devil has set up to this point. Okay, it says he taketh the wise in their own craftiness. You see, because all these schemes and plots, the devil really has entangled himself. You know, he has so much, you know, going on. You know, his craftiness, he got this, you know, like I said, he got, you know, this scam over here, you know, this backdoor deal over here, and, you know, this, this double cross set over here, this triple cross set over there, all this craftiness and slyness that this nigga got going on, it's going to work against him, man. Okay, it says in the counsel of the floor is carried headlong. Okay, so the Lord is going to roll this nigga off the cliff, all right, with the momentum, you know, that he's already started. Okay, with all this wickedness, man. Okay, so yeah, that's the point. You know, we'll leave it there. You know, so Lord will. All right, you brothers. Okay, and you few sisters edified once again. And give all praise and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Pakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders, GMS, who rule well, teach well, being great example towards younger brothers. Peace and blessings and salutation to the whole elect. Shalom.